expression that, I remember that. We do actually. We're always talking about how society might develop as socialist ideas spread, and the kind of and the kind of organisation that people might sort of, the kind of way people might decide they're going to organise themselves before socialism is actually established. We do talk about that. I mean, we don't lay down how it's going to be because we don't know exactly. I mean, capitalism is a rapidly changing society. In 50 years' time, the kind of society that exists today in capitalism, if we've not got socialism by then, will probably seem sort of incredibly archaic. All sorts of things will have happened. I mean, who could have imagined what society would be like today, capitalist society, 40, 50 years ago? Massive things have happened, haven't they? So it's impossible to lay down precisely what the future's going to be like, and the kind of forms that the way people will organise, on the way to socialism. But we're not averse to talking about that. We talk about it a lot. In fact, we simply don't lay things down, it would be quite wrong to do so. So the idea that we think we're going to pass immediately from this kind of society we've got now to the kind of society we advocate without anything changing is not right. It's a misunderstanding, if I can be polite, at least anyway, of what our view of the way society works and the way socialism will come about is. Now, the contributor just now said, okay, how are we going to convince people that socialism is worth having when there are some people living in high-rise flats and some living in sort of big houses in Surrey? I want a big house in Surrey. Okay, I wouldn't mind a big house in Surrey, but it depends. I mean, socialism is not a society in which people will be able to have absolutely everything they want. They'll be able to have what's available. Our argument is that enough will be available. Enough is probably available already if the means of production were sort of used in a reasonable way in order to accommodate people's needs. But that's a detail which will need to be dealt with when we've got socialism. I mean, not everybody will want to live in a big house in Surrey. Some will, some won't. And it may well be that it gets decided that big houses in Surrey are shared between a number of people, and no individual can have such big. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that the resources are available now, and class war itself says that, if used in a way to satisfy people's needs. They are available in order to provide for us, to provide the whole population of the world in a very comfortable way. Ian raised the point that if we try and bring that about in this country, then even if the capitalist class here aren't capable of sort of stopping it, somebody will step in from outside. But the whole idea of socialism, it's got to be a world system. You've got to have this kind of idea spreading sort of generally throughout the world, otherwise you can't possibly achieve it. It can't exist in one country. That's absolutely fundamental to socialism, and that's one of the reasons why we are very much opposed to organisations who somehow think you can have a different kind of society in one country. And it's one of the things I thought that class war were absolutely adamant about, that we're talking about, a spread of ideas worldwide, not in a particular geographical area.
Well, do you want to come up on this one there?
Well, funny enough, I live in Croydon, which used to be in Surrey. It's the same. So I do live in a house in Surrey, but there's obviously one in Corbett in Sunningdale. We're going to live in the house. Really like to go
I think behind my question was the production of things that are beautiful. Do we not get Rolls Royces anymore? Do we not get?
No, you won't get Rolls Royces. No.
Well, if you want one, you have to claim the choice.
We're losing out.
Well, you will lose out.
I'm not talking about wealth. I'm talking about
we'll prioritise. With like 80% of the world starving, putting resources into producing Rolls Royces, beautiful as though they may be, and beautiful as just down the other maybe in diamonds, and beautiful as Damien Hirst paintings, flogging at 80 million quid a throw are. Then, in a socialist society, decisions will be made to priorities, and the priorities will be given to stop people starving to death. The kind of choice you're talking about is a capitalist choice. You're not talking about a socialist choice. But it seems to me you're quite happy under capitalism. They give you choice. You can either starve in one country or ride around a roller in another.
Right.
A very persistent hand at the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's true there's never been a socialist majority, so the thing doesn't apply, but there have been plenty of cases where there's been a majority in favour of something, and the government has had to give way. I mean, there are two recent examples of that. One is also from Latin America. In 2002, there was a coup against the Chavez government in Venezuela. What happened? The people showed that they were on the side of the government, and the plotters gave in. So that,
No, they didn't vote against them. They physically went out and
yes,
physically got him down.
Yes.
Physically,
yeah, that's right.
not by voting.
That's right. Well, I mean, so the point I'm saying is a government cannot defy a majority which is against it. I mean, if they try to, people, demonstrating in the streets and so on. And the second historically example of that is the collapse of state capitalism in Eastern Europe. Two of the more conservative regimes there were the Ulbricht in East Germany, and the other one in Czechoslovakia. What happened? They could have chosen to resist if they wanted to, but they realised that the game was up, and they abandoned power to what the majority wanted. Now, there was one dictator in Eastern Europe who decided to try and resist what the majority wanted. He was called Ceausescu. It lasted a week. A week later, he was hanged from a lamppost. So I don't think that if you've got a majority, the government can do what they want. They can't turn things off like that. I agree. This is. It wasn't a case of socialism, but it was a case of a majority wanting something and the government, or a ruling elite having to give way to the majority, more or less peacefully.
Do you want to come back on that, or we are running out of time? This is probably the last, unless there's anyone else particularly desperate. Right, so I'll take you as desperate after that.
Right, just get back to the issue of luxury goods that are supposedly wanted by the working class after socialism has been achieved. I think a fairly important point has at least been partly missed here, and that is that goods like huge stockbroker houses in Surrey, Ferraris, Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces are only sought after by certain people, even in capitalism. Admittedly, it could be said that a large number of people would like to get their hands on things like that if they could, but that is because they've been brainwashed by the capitalist advertising media into considering that large houses and fast sports cars are desirable. Now, we're talking about a fundamental mindset change that the majority of the population would have made to actually make the transformation from capitalism to socialism feasible. And I can't imagine for one moment that once the majority of the population have seen through the fallacy of and the falsehoods of the capitalist advertising media, as well as the capitalist system itself, that there are going to be millions of people clambering for Ferraris and large houses. And another thing, each people have got different individual needs. And the point is that if you wanted a very large